Three, two, one. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Founders Log. I'm your host, Calvin Wineland, with the behind the scenes to American Butchers JERKi. Today is May 22nd, and this is iteration number 21. Woo! Round of applause. We are on consecutive week number 2 of doing these little podcasts, and it feels so good to be back. It feels so good to not have to try and restart this intro yet again for like the 5th time. Perfection is the enemy of good. I mean, I'm going to start with that and just say that if you try and make something perfect every time, it's never going to be good, and you're never going to publish anything. So let's deep dive into the past, the present, and the future, talking about everything that is American Butchers JERKi, the behind the scenes. For those of you first time listening, welcome. For those of you who are a concurrent listener and just deep diving into the history that is American Butchers JERKi, following along, welcome to the behind the scenes. Without further ado, we can just get right into it. We're going to start with the past week. So how we basically develop these podcasts is we talk about everything that's happened in the last week since the last podcast. We talk about what we're currently doing for American Butchers JERKi, and we're talking about what we're hoping to achieve in the upcoming week, what our goals are, ambitions as we move forward. And we never really create the title of these until after we talk about the topic, because really this podcast kind of molds what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to accomplish. So we usually just create the title after we've gone and deep dived into talking. So without further ado, last week was a pretty interesting week, let me tell you. For some reason, we have been just experiencing some, how do I say this? Some interesting business development, I think you could say. A lot of times I've listened to countless amounts of podcasts, and so many companies just talk about the things that have gone well for the company or what is currently going great. Well, let me tell you, this past week has been, it almost felt like we hit the restart button when it came to American Butchers JERKi, only because we experienced a pretty interesting situation down here at our headquarters. I'll just give you the situation and we can kind of backtrack from there. I'll set the mood. So I was hanging out with a few buddies that are in my specific aviation class, and I was trying to talk to them about, oh, hey, I've got this beef jerky business. I sell beef jerky. I send beef jerky overseas. And they're like, yo, that's awesome. And they really didn't believe me. And so I went home for lunch, and I came back and I grabbed a bag of beef jerky. And I was like, here you go. Look at this. I just tossed it to him and I was like, yeah, we make this. This is an incredible product. And the guys are like, no way. And long story short, he opened up the bag and pulled out the moldiest, the greenest bag I had ever seen here at American Butchers JERKi. I'm talking like open the bag, mold. I was in shock. I had never seen our product look the way that it had done in that moment. And the minute I saw him take it out, I was just jaw to the floor, disappointed in myself, disappointed in what I had created, because I wanted to give these guys a great product and wanted to show them how incredible our beef jerky was. And to see their face when they open up the bag and they just pull out this piece of beef jerky that's just covered in mold. And I was so upset, because this beef jerky had only been made maybe a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months at the max. And our beef jerky, let me tell you, has a shelf life of like 6 months. It should not have been getting moldy that quick. And I was honestly just kind of like, what the heck is that? And I opened it up. I was like, dude, give me that bag back. I took that bag back. I went in the other room and I just laid out everything on the table. I emptied the entire bag. I looked to see that it did have an oxygen absorber. So I was like, all right, brand new bag, oxygen absorber. It has sodium nitrite, so it has a preservative in the beef jerky already. And I just laid everything out, and I'm like, what is going wrong? how is this possibly happening to us? We're a year into this game, and I am still not mastering the craft of making beef jerky. And I was just like in shock. So I called up our testing facility out of Dallas, Texas, AFL, and I was like, hey, I honestly called this, and I called the secretary, and she was like, hey, how can I help you? And I was like, listen, we've gone through testing with you guys before. We've done water testing. We've done moisture content. And I honestly just need to talk to someone as if I'm a brand new customer wanting to take my product to become a shelf-stable product, because apparently what I'm doing, or what I thought I'm doing, is just not cutting it. So she put us on with one of their product specialty managers, and he essentially was like, yeah, what can I do for you? And I laid it out on the table, and I was just, hey man, we have come to you guys in the past. We do a lot of testing through you guys. How we've normally tested our product is once a quarter we test a specific batch, and then we have standard operating procedures, SOPs, to make sure that our beef jerky is made the exact same way in-house. And so that way there is no discrepancy on how it's made or potentially changes the formula, because when you create a product, you want to test that product and you want everything to be the exact same. That way there's no room for error, or if the results come, that way you know exactly how it's being made. And so I told him, I was like, hey, we've come to you guys in the past. We get our product tested. We understand that the water content is way below where it needs to be. And I'm just like, why on earth is it doing this? And I essentially just said, hey man, we want to essentially just restart. And I just want to be like, hey, we're a brand new beef jerky company, i.e. playing this as a situation here. I'm a brand new beef jerky company, and I come to you guys saying, hey, I want a shelf-stable product, and I want to get it tested and see how long it can be shelf-stable for. And essentially, he was like, okay, yeah, man, we can definitely make that happen. And he essentially walked me through. It was like, all right, we understand. I'm looking at your results right now. We understand that your water content is here. We understand that this is your product. And when I told him the situation, he was kind of in shock as well, because he didn't know where that mold had been coming from. And so what he essentially did was we set up this this calendar, and we said, all right, bring us a product, a finalized product, so in the bag with the oxygen absorber, sealed out perfectly. Bring it to us, and we will go ahead and we're going to do the water content, the moisture activity, and we're also going to do a shelf life and basically see how long that product will go before it just turns into essentially mold, is what it did. So that's something that we're going to be working on. Is we're going to try and shoot for, our goal is to essentially get at least 5 months shelf stable product. I want to be able to put our beef jerky on a shelf, and within 5 months, essentially, that beef jerky is going to be just as good, if not better, when I put it right in the bag the first time. When I first came out of the smoker, all the way to 5 months later, I want that beef jerky to be flawless. And so we set up a plan. We looked at our kind of proposal and how we're going to make it happen, and essentially that's what we're going to do. And here's the crazy thing is, I went home that night and I was like, what is going on? And I emptied the bag that I had found the mold in, and I found a hole in it. So essentially what had happened was the oxygen absorber was essentially doing its job in removing all oxygen, but if there's a hole in the bag and it wasn't properly sealed, that essentially allows more oxygen from the air just to get into that bag, and it pretty much just consumed that bag full of oxygen. And I wanted to test that it wasn't anything else, so I went back into a few other bags, and I pulled out 4 other bags from different flavors, because I wanted to make sure this wasn't happening across the board. And I found out that it really was just that one bag. I had eaten 2 other bags, and I saw no problem in it. I saw no mold. The beef jerky looked just as good as I put it in. So I think I solved the problem, what we were experiencing. And I was honestly very worried, because I had hoped that I wasn't going to open up another bag from our inventory and see this mold. because I had just sent out 4 bags to a customer the night before. And so let me tell you, if you send 4 bags to a customer and the next day you opened up a bag and saw complete mold, you would be so worried for that customer that they don't experience that type of mold, and they don't experience that. So what I have essentially understood is we're still going to go ahead with our testing, because I want to make sure that we create an amazing product and that we actually have a specific date on, okay, even if your product's amazing, this has how long it's actually definitely going to last for. And so we're still going to go along with the testing, but what I can do now as we move forward is really check the seals when we're being made. There's a problem that as I'm stationed here in Alabama and our product is made by the rest of our team in Texas, I don't have that overseeing basically the entire operation, and it's not done in-house. So that is something that I wish that I was in Texas, or I wish that I was back so I could see everything being made from start to finish. It's hard to think that I get a finished product and that's all that I am currently part of the process, because there's an entire other process that essentially gets the meat from raw all the way to cooking, smoking, marinating, and then packaging, and then I essentially get that product. So I have to figure out a way to make sure that our bags are tighter, that they are that there's no holes or anything that's going to prevent or experience any of this growth. And I can also do this same type of test. We're going to be doing the same type of test with a military unit bags, because we want to make sure that those bags are also being perfectly fine. If you guys had listened last week, we had talked about how the bags going overseas, because of the change in temperature between hot, cold, being in the desert sun of Afghanistan, there can also increase the growth of pathogens in that product. So what we have essentially eliminated is that we're going to be testing both products, testing shelf life, testing product survivability, testing growth. We're going to be doing a lot of testing as we move here into year 2 of the jerky enterprise. And honestly, you live and you learn. We have learned a lot of things along this process, and I would have never thought that even when we think that we're doing something right, there is always something that could be better, or something that still needs to be worked on. And that is something that, at least in the last week, I've been extremely, I want to say, grateful for, because we're learning more and more about our product. We're learning more and more about this procedures. I'm learning more and more about the benefits of increased systems, so increased production lines. So when like bigger beef jerky companies have like automatic presses, automatic vacuum sealers, automatic like sealings, that allows a lot of this kind of micro errors to be eliminated. And I'm just happy that it was only on one bag, and I've pretty much solved the issue because of the hole. And I almost thought I'm just going to take every bag that we own, dunk it underwater, and see if any bubbles start to form, because that would essentially tell us, hey, there is a hole in this bag. And it could really be the most minute hole, or say the bag wasn't properly sealed and there was a wrinkle in it when it was heat sealed. These are all things that we're learning. These are all things that we're trying to get better at. And moving just into our next kind of topic is, I want to make sure that we have the right inventory. This past order, I doubled our normal inventory order because I thought that we were just increasing our increasing our sales dramatically, when in reality we just had a few really good months and I ordered too much beef jerky. So that's one thing that we highlight as being a small batch company, and I really need to emphasize that we are small batch, and I shouldn't go ahead and just buy a bunch of more batches or make a bunch of more batches, because that kind of tarnishes that small batch name. That tarnishes that brand, and we want to make sure that we're consistent and transparent across the board. Yeah, talking about a heck of a last week. A very interesting week, to say the least. But this week, currently what we're working on is a lot better. And this is really an opportunity for last week to talk about what we're developing on and currently what we're working on. We are putting our foot into a new avenue. We have worked very well with Waypoint Bank. I talked about this in last week's iteration of the Founders Log, but I didn't realize this until just recently. They were actually posting all the winners of their fundraiser online, and everyone who wins our beef jerky, they take a picture of it. And just recently, now that it is May 22nd and they've been doing this every week, I saw some of the pictures of people who had received our beef jerky, and I was impressed. I was proud. I was happy to see that people are enjoying it. People are getting some incredible products. We're expanding our avenues of outreach and reaching more and more customers, which is awesome. And to add into that, we have now, almost 22 days later, incorporated our Instagram with them. So we're kind of sharing some of those same winners, sharing some of those experiences that their customers are engaging with. And I'm actually trying to engage in a few other avenues through Instagram. So, for example, we just published our first reel. I spent the earlier part of this week just understanding what the difference between like IGTV, reels, video, pictures, collages, and I've just been learning about Instagram. I've never been tech savvy. I just kind of understand that, all right, I'm going to upload a picture and that's it. But there's a lot more ways to handle social media. For example, a reel is essentially just like a quick highlight. It's not a story that just gets up and then goes away, but it allows you to publish a smaller, like 15-second video. So one of our photographers, actually Joey, he assisted with creating a few reels and pictures and stories. So we've been using those on our Instagram, and we have our first reel. So it was very cool to experience that. It was cool to set it up. We still have tons of pictures that need to go up on our website and on our Instagram page. So we're working towards currently harnessing that Instagram a little bit better. Now, let's talk about the future, our last topic here as we move forward. For those of you who don't know, I briefly kind of talked about this in 2 iterations ago, I think, two podcasts, but the American Butchers JERKi team is actually going international. Both myself and Joseph are getting deployed to Korea for a year. We're getting just forward deployment stationed there. So essentially, we're currently in Fort Rucker, Alabama. We're getting stationed overseas to Korea for a year. That's where we're moving. So we're taking the entire American Butchers JERKi, I guess, company overseas, which will be pretty interesting. We're still trying to figure out how order fulfillments will be handled, whether that be also handled in Korea with us, or if that order fulfillment process will be handled in Texas. I just talked about how I want to kind of oversee a lot more things on this operation. So giving away the shipping operation, giving away the packaging operation to our Texas partner is really going to be interesting, because when it's your baby, you kind of want to watch over everything, and you want to make sure everything is going well, and you want to make sure that when you get to see over everything, you understand the entire process. And when you experience an issue in a bag, you have kind of seen where that issue is, how we can solve that issue and move forward. So when we're now moving overseas, putting that entire operation now in Texas's hand can get a little interesting. So I want to make sure that it's properly set up and it's something that can be handled effectively when we move over to Korea. So that's something that we're going to be having to worry about. We've still got about a month and a half time frame before anything like that really starts to kick in. So that's something that we're looking forward to, and we're kind of nervous about in the next few weeks as we progress forward. I have seen some companies seem to take the Korean deployment and launch their businesses. So this might be an opportunity for us to get rid of any distractions that we might have. It's an opportunity for us to really hunker down and focus on product engagement, product releasing, and just trying to hone in on some of the things that we didn't quite achieve in year one. So now that we are officially past our launch date and we are officially in year two, this is exciting stuff moving forward, that we can now, safe to say, know what we've learned from year one and apply those same steps and procedures here into year two. But without further ado, that is all for us. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for just listening to the things that we are learning to get better at, the things that we are learning to improve. And yeah, without further ado, thank you all. And we will talk to you guys in the next iteration of the Founders Log, hopefully coming at you next week. Bye-bye.